All right. Thank you so much, everybody. We're going to go ahead and get started. So I am Rich Rutledge, and I am super excited to introduce you folks to today. We're going to have a great discussion, and we have our guest speakers, Colin and Kelly, here from Comcast. Today's presentation is going to be an interactive discussion, hopefully, on how you can take ownership of your career. Our presenters are going to give you a rare behind the curtain, behind the scenes look at how the recruitment and talent processes work, and share steps you can take to stay in control of your career journey. Before we get to the presentation, however, I would like to go ahead and take a little bit of time to walk you through our mission here at SCTE. So with that, we do have a quick PowerPoint we're going to run through. Bear with me just one moment. And we're going to talk a little bit about SCTE. This might be information you already know. Some of it might be information you don't. So we're going to go ahead and go over that for everybody. So as I said, this is our last Thursday presentation on owning your career, and it's brought to you by SCTE, Society of Cable Telecommunication Engineers. So our mission here at SCTE, so there's a lot of things that we do, and there are 6 main bullet points of what we do. But our mission here at the Rocky Mountain chapter is to be the best chapter in the world by enriching the lives of our members through ongoing growth, development, and connectivity through programs such as these, technical trainings, things along those lines, and to be a mile high better than the rest. So I think so far we're doing that, but we got to keep it up. We do that through 6 bullet points. Those are going to be education. So using technology courses for our members to help advance their knowledge of new technologies. Hundreds of trainings are out there, boot camps. Many of them come free with your membership, so hopefully you're taking advantage of those, as well as certifications that allow for advancement through study and exams for technology professionals that are looking to advance their career. We work with standards, ANSI accredited programs for everything from proactive network maintenance, next-gen video technology, distributed architecture, Internet of Things, and more. And not working a laptop is apparently one of the things. Career advancement, things like what we're doing today, support for our members' career goals, mentoring, professional development, etc. Networking, organizing events to help bolster relationships between the MSOs, vendors, and technology and innovation through our partnership with Cable Labs, bring cutting edge technologies to the forefront. And then a 7th bullet point, we even tossed in an extra one today. I said 6, but it was actually 7. And that is community outreach. So how can we get the word out there on our cable technology? Things like working with our robotics teams in high schools, working with those types of industries, supporting scholarships. So anybody who wants to pursue an education in the technology related field can do so. So that's our mission and what we do here at SCTE. Throughout this process, if you folks have any questions, please feel free to raise your hand, type it in the chat. And we will get those questions answered as quickly and expeditiously and completely as possible. With that, we do have the all access program. So as you see, access to cutting edge courses, all member events, industry kickoff, cable games, member appreciation. We're going to talk a little bit about Cable Tech Expo that's coming up in October, and that you do get complimentary access to for the vendor show floor, technical sessions, etc. Comcast, for those of you that are associated with Comcast, completely covers your membership fee, no out-of-pocket expenses for you. But don't forget to associate yourself with Rocky Mountain chapter. And some of the other MSOs out there also cover it, so make sure that you're checking with them as well. Good opportunity to network and meet some people. So let's talk a little bit about certifications. So our certifications we have in a variety of different areas. As you can see, we've got technical, we've got more of the engineering side, head end, etc. When you get the certifications, there is some bonuses that we're going to talk about in just a minute. And not only that, you get some cool letters to add to the alphabet soup at the end of your title. So make sure that you get those as well and proudly put them on your business cards. So with the certifications, when you do those, we have them for all levels of expertise. So you can prove your knowledge, gain recognition in the industry, promote expertise, advance a career, and we do have incentive, not only that, but we do incentivize you for that. So as a member of the Rocky Mountain chapter, if you take an exam fee that's not otherwise reimbursed to you through your company or other things, The chapter can reimburse you or will reimburse you once you pass your exam. And then there are also, on top of that, incentives that are given for those exams. So for example, we have, and you can go to this website, scte-rmc.org/incentive-program. With that, you can see some of our incentives right here. So for example, if you do the Broadband Telecom Center Specialist, not only will we reimburse the $120 exam fee if it was paid out of pocket, but there's also a $200 incentive on that that would be paid directly to you. So great way to get some certifications. You can see all the details and rules, et cetera, on the website, but it's definitely a great opportunity to get in there and help expand your knowledge and show everybody that your knowledge is expanded. So with that, don't forget to save the date. Cable Tech Expo is coming up in October 16th to 19th. It is coming back to Denver after a 6-year hiatus. Last time I was here was 2017. And they said, hey, we're celebrating 40 years. Where better than Denver? So they're all coming out here. It is going to be at the Colorado Convention Center downtown. Just look for the big blue bear. And you can see the theme of this year's conference is going to be exponential. So connect, collaborate, and innovate. Make sure you're getting your tickets. As you saw, it is included with your membership. This is how you can connect with us. We've got many, many ways, as you would expect from a technology group. We have our website, Twitter. We need to go ahead and update that at some point, or now X, the platform formerly known as Twitter. Email, Facebook, YouTube, reach out to us on any of those channels. And then also we do want to thank our industry partners, Charter, Comcast, and Vecima, as well as all the sponsors of our of the chapter in general. You can see all these. We definitely appreciate all of their support to help these come to fruition. So with that, and thank you, Ron, we do also have a LinkedIn page. Make sure that you are getting in there, following that, reposting, and sharing that content as well. So with that, let's go ahead and talk a little bit about today's guest speakers. So first up, we have Kelly Turow. She's a senior manager of talent management, talent's an HR leader with over 11 years of experience leading recruitment, people management, and DE&I efforts across Fortune 50 organizations. From guiding recruitment and talent management strategy to leading critical talent and succession planning discussions to helping to elevate historically marginalized populations. Across the workplace, Kelly is a go-to person for career well-being and career development. Kelly's Comcast career began in 2017 as a recruiter supporting professional level roles across the West Division. In 2022, she moved over to the talent management and DE&I space, where she supports all levels of employees. Kelly is very passionate about helping employees navigate their career journey and helping to remove obstacles that underrepresented employees may face throughout the career. So help me in welcoming Kelly. Perfect. Next, we have Colin North. Cheadle is a seasoned HR leader and executive coach with over 20 years of experience, including work with Fortune 50, Fortune 500, private global marketing and technology, national manufacturing corporations, startup corporations, and governmental agencies. From guiding foundational strategy to leading strategic improvements to the collective experiences of people in the workplace, Colin has led transformational, diversity-centered organizational change at every stop of his career. Colin has established himself as a reputable leader in people operations, talent and change management, technology development, and mobile app strategy. He has extensive experience with aiding executives in achieving their highest levels of production and performance for the betterment of the organization. His passion for people is what has always been the main ingredient in his professional accomplishments. And help me welcome Colin.
First of all, back to Rich in that introduction, in that voice. I mean, incredible. Like, you missed your calling. I'm not sure if you needed to do like, I think we need to see you on TV in arenas and stadiums and on the radio. So thank you for that introduction, and thank you for having us. And really excited to be here with you all. So why don't we go ahead and jump in? Next slide. This pointer's not working. Okay, great. So we're going to be talking to you really just kind of from the heart in terms of career management, how you approach it, how you leverage the things that you've done to get yourself here to this place, and really how you approach your career going forward. And so when we say own your career, we really mean, that no one can tell your story better than you can, right? We all have a story, and every one of our stories is relevant. But I think that sometimes what we find that happens is we feel, for whatever reason, we have to mute our story. We have to minimize our story, and we don't tell the story of how we got to be where we are. And I think that's something that's super important. I know within SCTE and within Comcast, and I'm sure within Charter, there is a push towards storytelling, and being good storytellers is really a part of leadership. Being able to bring people along on your journey and to tell people how you got where you got is super, super important. And so when you're talking about your career journey, and when you're talking about the things that you have the skills that you've been able to acquire as you've gotten to the place that you're at, it's really important to celebrate that, because it is exciting, and it does make you who you are. It makes you an original. And I think all too often we steer away from being proud about what we've done in our careers to get where we are. So if you take nothing else away from today, take that away, that no one can tell your story better than you can. And when you're telling your story, whether that's in an interview or on an application or on a resume or cover letter, what I would encourage everyone here to do is to steer away from stating tasks and duties that you performed. Not only is that boring, because that's just a repetition of what the job description might say, or what someone may be able to see when they look up a job online, but it doesn't really add the same value, right? And so what I would encourage you to do is allow for those people who are reviewing your resume, your cover letter, listening to you, what you talk about in your past career, in your interviews, to make an assumption that you got to the place that you got because you were able to do the things that the position required you to do, right? That's kind of a starting point. But to get beyond that, to go a level past that, right, it's really important to tell the story. What did you accomplish, right? What were your highlights? What were the greatest victories, right? The things that you were able to do that caused you to stand out, right? What are the things that when you think about your career and you reflect on the things that you've done, or even the things that you're doing, what are the things that you can hang your hat on, right? What makes you unique, and what makes your experience unique, and what would draw someone to you as a potential team member? Those are the things that you want to concentrate on and focus on, so that the skills and experiences that you've had jump off that page, or in an interview, it jumps out, right? That's what you want to do. How do you set yourself apart? And that's what's really important when it comes to owning your career. And a little bit about my story, and I know Rich kind of shared some of it. I came from and have really spent the majority of my career in HR leadership, working, as Rich said, both with national and global HR talent leadership teams, and leading teams in that way, both in learning and design, and in media, technology, and DE&I was always a theme that ran through that work. Also, organizational development has been big for me in terms of how I've approached my role in my career, and used that as an executive coach, both internally within the organizations that I was a part of, and externally as a consultant. But the thing that was touched on, right, in Rich's introduction of me, is that people have really always been the common denominator for me. In some way, shape, or form, I've always been able to maneuver the work that I've done in a way where I've been able to help the people that I was working with. And that really is the thing that I value most in my career, and the things that I can do. And so I'm going to ask you all to drop a word in the chat, or, unmute yourself if we're muted, if we can even have that kind of participation, and tell me one word that describes the top talent that you feel you bring to your role, to your organization, to your work. And that can be a skill, that can be an attribute, it can be a quality, whatever that one thing is that you feel like, this is the thing that I can hang my hat on. Drop that in the chat if you can. And while you're thinking about that, while you're doing that, I'll let you know that for me, that one word for me is connector. And I've always found that I've been able to and have had a passion for connecting people with the things that they need to be connected to, connecting people with resources, connecting people with one another. That's always been something that I have found personally to be very satisfying and professionally to be something that's very satisfying. So I'm seeing some things come through the chat now. Great. Like team building, adaptability, integrity, being a teacher. We can never have too many teachers, right? Great. Keep them coming. Empathy, I think that's often overlooked, right? How important empathy is in the workplace, especially in today's post-COVID workplace. Those are all great. And keep thinking of those. And it doesn't have to be just one, but I would encourage you to add at least just one to the chat. And I know that as we get through this presentation today, Kelly will also be able to kind of utilize some of these words that we're hearing in an exercise that she's going to have you all work through. Right. So this next slide really speaks to an approach to how you look at your career, how you kind of play back the story of how you've gotten to where you are today, and really how you market yourself. Because another thing that we hear a lot of is the importance of having a brand, right? Your own brand, your internal brand that might be shared within the company. But we also have this brand, this image, this professional image that we want to portray outside, right, of the company as well to others, right? And so when I think of it, we came up with this acronym called R.E.A.D, right? And not only, of course, do we need to know how to read, that's important, right? And I think I can go out on a limb and assume that everybody on this call knows how to do that. But to take it a little bit more deeply, each of these letters refer to really an important part of that process. And so that first part that you want to focus on is review, right? Just taking the time, again, to review and reflect on your career portfolio. And I won't read all of this, but just highlight some of those key areas. One of the biggest things that gets overlooked in the workplace and when we're applying for roles is something very simple, like just eliminating errors from whatever your personal marketing information is, whether that's your resume, whether that's your cover letter, whatever that is that you use to promote yourself and what you bring to the table. If that contains errors, it's a killer, right? So, 56%, roughly 56% of resumes, believe it or not, that get submitted to recruiters contain at least one error. And so when there's at least one error, what that causes is at least one turn down, right? And so if you've spent all this time to package yourself in a way that you're putting your best foot forward and you're talking about what you bring to the table and you're really working on that personal brand and your resume has a typo, not 9 times out of 10, or really according to the data, 7 times out of 10, you're out of there, right? And we all know, particularly those of us who have been in the recruiting world, that your window of opportunity is real slim, and recruiters are looking at a lot of resumes, and hiring managers are looking at a lot of resumes, and they're looking at ways to eliminate. That becomes an easy way to do it. So don't give people that that stick to beat you with. The next one is evaluate. And when we're talking about evaluating, again, we're talking about taking a really good look at your portfolio, right? And making sure that it's effective, making sure that it's really in alignment with the kind of role or position or opportunity that you're going for. And really just making sure that it tells the story that you want it to tell. Does it say the things that you want it to say? Is it updated? Is it current, right? And so these are the things that you want to consider. And really at the end of the day is you want to ask yourself the question, would it attract you? If you were the person who was hiring for the role and you were looking at that information, would it be enough to entice you, to make you want to learn more, to make you want to bring a person in for the interview? And really that's how you want to approach that and think about that. The next one is advancing, right? So really, what makes you special? And when I say advancing, how do you advance your story? How do you advance yourself? How do you put yourself in a higher light, in a greater light that, again, causes folks that are looking to make a really key hire think about you, right? And make you someone they have to consider in that process, right? So when I talk about that, what I mean is, what about you sets you apart? What makes you special? So similar to how I'm asking everybody in the room to kind of come up with that one thing, that one quality, that one skill, that one ability that one attribute that you bring to the table. This is another one to think about. Right? What about your career sets you apart or makes you unique? And then the last piece, decide. So at some point we have to make a decision. Right? We don't always have to have all the answers and know exactly where we want to go, though some of us do and some of us have. But it's important to have an idea about where you want to go. And what I often tell the folks that I talk to is, if you don't know where you're trying to go, or you don't know where you're headed exactly, or what you want, start with the things that you don't want. Because I think we can all pretty easily and quickly talk about what we don't like and what we don't want. And that's a good starting place.
Certainly, take a look over things and ensure that, it is grammatically sound. There aren't any typos. The email address is correct. And so, doing those things. And Laura did put something in the chat there. Laura says, what about folks that are looking to pivot to something completely different than what they're doing today?
Yeah.
Do you have any comments?
Yeah, good question. And I think this is fun, right? Because this is the part where we really get to kind of go back through that exploratory work, right? And if they are looking to do something different, right, what is that thing that they're looking to do? And so if I have a definitive idea of something new that I want to jump into, say I wanted to go from the world of learning and development into the world of HR operations. Well, first, I had to find some folks in my network who were doing that work that I wanted to do. And I think it's also important, right, to do your due diligence, to do your research, and to look at job descriptions that speak to the kind of work that you think that you want to do. Screen what you think you want to do against what it actually requires. And that'll help to give you an idea of, is this the thing that I really want to move to? And if compensation is a thing that you want to find out, there's certainly resources that are out there that allow you to take a look at that as well in the process.
Colin, I've got a question for you.
Sure.
So what about, a lot of people on the phone may be more technical based and may have some of these certifications. And maybe the hiring manager might not even know about some of these different certifications that might be out there.
Mm-hmm.
How can we help highlight some of those technical certifications for us? Some of the skills that we might have, some of the emerging technologies that maybe some of the others aren't really familiar with, things along those lines, and still show that we're that qualified for the job. How can we do that?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I don't know that there's an easy answer to that, other than saying the areas in which you have acquired your experience, whether that's a certification, whether that's, a talk that you've done, whatever you've done really to set yourself apart. And certifications are certainly a way to do that, are things that you have to then adopt the role of being an educator, to educate whoever it is that's reviewing that information about why it's important and about how it relates to the work that you're trying to do, right? Because there has to be that connection. If you're not able to make the connection between what you've acquired and what you're after, then you're kind of dead in the water, right? So that's again where, I think something else that I didn't mention is where creativity comes into play. And we have to be creative in how we tell stories about what we do and how we connect certain experiences and make them relevant to what we're trying to get into. So certainly, if you have a mentor who can help you in that regard, or someone who look up a leader who you respect, who can give you some pointers about how they may have been able to do that, that might be a good place to start.
And if we've got some of the people that, probably have more letters in their certifications than they do in their name, how do you put all that on there without almost coming across as bragging?
Yeah.
And you've earned them all, but for sure.
Yeah.
But you don't want to turn somebody off because you are too qualified. So how do you do that as well?
Absolutely. It's a balance, right? And again, similar, I don't want to sound like a cop out. There's no easy answer to that other than to really get clear on the job or the position that you're after and what that position entails, and to really align how you market yourself specifically to what that job is looking for. And so there may be things that maybe a third of the things that you've acquired aren't relevant, right? So keep those out of the resume, right? You can always have an addendum. You can always have a portfolio that you bring to the interview that has all that stuff, that if they ask for it, then you can provide it. So it's always better to have more than you need when you go into the interview rather than less than what you need. But good questions. So moving to the next slide, I don't see anything in the chat either. This piece really is the part that I love, right? And I touched on this a little bit earlier. It's really important to know what you want. And I know that sometimes that seems like a very simple statement, but when we really get down to it, there's oftentimes when we might think we know what we want, but we're not quite sure. And so it takes some time to do some personal exploration and some, looking in the mirror and really making a concerted effort to explore that for yourselves, what that means, right? Because no one else can define what you want for you. In the same way that nobody else should be telling your story, nobody else should be able to define for you what you want, right? And I know that we will have people in our paths who we look up to, whose opinions we value, who may inadvertently tell us what we want. And we may go along with what they said, as opposed to really taking that time to say, actually, I'm going to take what you said under advisement, but that's really not what I want, right? Sometimes we have to do that. Don't give that right away. It's okay to consult with others in your network. As Kelly said, your network is your net worth. One of the things that make your network so powerful is that these people can help you to problem solve. And if you're stuck between a decision to go this way or that way, maybe, you can consult with your network, your mentors, to help you to get clear, right, on what you want. And again, as I said earlier, one of the best ways to figure out what you do want is to really take an inventory of what you don't want. And that will help you make that decision, okay? So, I also would say, a good place to think about this is to go back through your career portfolio and go back through, the R.E.A.D exercise and really identify what are those areas that I did work that I might have had to do that I didn't really want to do, that still set me up for success. I know when I look back at my career, I have had roles that I really didn't like, but when I'm looking back, I can see how they positioned me to be where I am today. And they gave me some things that I might not necessarily have wanted, but needed. So I think I see another comment in the chat.
I think Nam makes a great point. They said it's your network is your net worth is important, but it's also your skills and knowledge.
100%.
Really make that.
Yeah, I 100%. 100%
Great
agree.
added to that motto, absolutely.
Yeah, 100% agree. So I think the message here is just never be afraid to leverage your network. Never make assumptions about what your network does or doesn't know, does or doesn't possess, because the key to kind of getting you over a hump in terms of making the decision might be sitting right there under your nose. So really leverage your network, spend some time to be deliberate about growing your network and about, kind of getting outside of yourselves and really kind of reaching out, expanding your horizons and considering those folks that are in your network as true resources that can help you kind of get where you want to go. Slide. And then just this piece, I think, probably we all kind of know the difference between skills and skill interests. But why I want to be deliberate about this is when you're in the process of exploring what it is, again, that you've done, right? The jobs that you've held, and really kind of what you bring to the table. The question that you want to ask yourself is, what is it that you're capable of that ventures beyond the job description, right? And so I think I continue to make the point that the story that you tell and how you highlight your accomplishments is a way that you can leverage that skill set, those skill sets that you bring to the table, and then capitalize on that by talking about the things that you want to do, right? And so, you may have a certain goal in mind in terms of your future that requires a certain development of a certain skill set, and so it's important to bring both of these things, into your career portfolio and into your exploration as you're looking. You always want to make sure that the things that show up on your skill interests or your skill sets are in alignment with your goals. I think that's all I have. I'm gonna pass it on to Kelly. I'm gonna mute myself.
All right, thank you, Colin.
Hey, Kelly, we actually can't hear you.
To just really make sure that you're spending that time and carving that out. So then once you've done the work, right, you've done the work of self-exploration, you identified either the things you definitely know you don't want to do, so that leads you to the things that you do want to do. There is a way for you to make your development really specific, attainable, to make sure is very specific. So this is a nice framework that can really help you to really drill down to those specific goals and make sure that there's action behind each of them. And so on the screen here, you can see a nice framework that you can use. This is a sort of a framework or a map for you that you can go back to in order to piece out your development actions. And so these are the four E's. So the four E's are exposure, experience, environment, and education. And so with that, we have exposure. And so what exposure really entails means is how you get to know and build relationships with other people. And also, how can they get to know you? We talk all about why you are so special and so important, and all of the various attributes and skill sets that you bring on a daily basis. Where can you have exposure? Who can you gain exposure to? Whether it's that other department or a senior leader. And so you can do that in a few different ways. We're going to go into specifics on the next page, but this is just generally, you all have, in my opinion, made the first step. You all are part of SCTE, and that is a great way to gain exposure to your peers and leaders across the industry and across the Rocky Mountain. And so that's the first way. And so networking and building those key relationships. You can also join employee resource groups as a member, or you can even take a board position and have that more active role. The second E is all about experience, and that's about the on-the-job development to build your skills and your responsibilities. And that might mean you're taking on a special project up and above your regular role. This is really actually a great tactic to use if you are very interested in learning about a cross-function or a different organization, to perhaps join in on a project that they're working on. because you can bring your expertise of your current role and your current skills, and you can leverage those for the new opportunity, the new department, and you'll be able to learn more about how they do things. And so I would definitely recommend digging a little bit more into the experience portion of these 4 E's, especially if you are interested in moving cross-functionally. Also, it can be participating in a development program, or it could also be taking just coursework. It could be formal learnings. It could be trainings online. LinkedIn Learning has a lot of different resources. And so, anything that you can do as a stepping stone to broaden your experience in a particular area and help prepare you for that next step. And then the third E is environment. And that's about learning about the unique cultures that exist across a variety of companies, a variety of functions and organizations, as well as even regions and geographies. And so thinking about, where you are today and, again, where you might want to go. Thinking about the type of culture, the team norms, the organizational norms that exist in your place today, and if that's a right match for you. Maybe you feel you could be better suited in a different kind of culture or organizational norm, and so seeking that out. And to Colin's point before, that's through that networking, making connections, talking to folks who are in different geographies or companies or industries, and learning more about those cultures and norms. And then finally, education. We did talk a little bit about education up above with experience, but really just being a lifelong learner and always taking the opportunity to learn something new. Again, I think you all have taken a great first step in joining this meeting and doing this today. And so few examples, might be, again, participating in a training, completing coursework, going in through LinkedIn again, and again, the formal courseworks and trainings that exist within our area colleges, universities, certifications, and technical programs. So really, there's no limit to where you want to grow your career. You set the limit yourself. And so this is just a nice framework for you to be able to determine where it is that you want to go and how actionably you'll take to get there. And so, slide please. Thanks, Rich. We talked a little bit about the 4 E's, and we gave some examples here, so I won't, speak on every particular topic, but you have a few more examples here when it comes to the 4 E's. And, hopefully for some of you, the wheels are turning, right? You're starting to get some of those ideas on how you can develop yourself, because again, we move from exploration and self-identification of what it is that you want, where you want to go. And now we start to put things into action and into, your career journey, your career plan. And that could be something that, you're writing out and you're actually sharing back with your leader and, with our, your champions, your mentors, and your allies. And so before we move away from the 4 E's, I just want to give an opportunity for, folks to either, put in the chat or raise their hand. Are there any questions about, the 4 E's and using this as a framework to specify your goals and make them action oriented? And so this is just a really quick, kind of roadmap and outline of our career growth plans. And so, for those of you who, are with companies that have Workday or really any, kind of HR operating system, you will have an area where you can, delve into your personal career growth plan and make it, actionable and discoverable for you and your leader, as well as your mentors and allies in your career journey. And so again, a career growth plan is your roadmap. Once you've identified where you want to go on your career journey, and, just so you know, it doesn't necessarily always mean taking the next step or taking a new job or a promotion. It can absolutely be continuing to grow and develop in the role that you're in today. I don't want anyone to think this is all about, maximizing your, career to get that next promotion. It can be, if that's what's in the cards for you and, what you've decided, because again, no one cares more about your career than you do. And you own your career journey and you decide how far you're going and how you're going about that. Because a career journey also is not linear, and it doesn't follow up a vertical. It's more like a jungle gym, is what I think I've heard someone describe it as. And so, again, yes, it can absolutely be for those of you who want that next role, want to move laterally or promotionally, but it can also be for individuals who want to continue to grow in their place. And so, it really will, the career growth plan will help you to track progress towards your goal and hold yourself accountable to it. And also create accountability with yourself, with your leader, mentor, and maybe a peer accountability buddy that you decide to bring into, your allyship of your career journey. And then, you can, again, think about those 4 E's: experience, exposure, education, and environment, when thinking about, putting the goals into your particular, system or journey. And then you can track, again, the status of your goals. And what you want to be doing is, as things are happening, right? As you're going through your year, you have an accomplishment, and it's accomplishment that ties really nicely to one of your career goals. You can go back into your career growth plan, your journey, and you can actually add a bullet point of that accomplishment. And then guess what happens? At the end of the year, when you go to write your own year-end evaluation, you have all of these amazing bullet points that you've tracked all throughout the year that aligned really nicely back to your career goals in your career growth plan. And you can use those to write out your year-end evaluation. So it makes it really easy on you when you go into that conversation with your leader. And then guess what happens? Then you can use all of those points and you can add them to your resume. So we talked a little bit about resume. We're going to talk a little bit more about resume a little bit later. But, as Colin mentioned, those are not just reiterating the job description bullet points that you can find on that description of your role. It really is, taking the achievements that you've had and writing those out under your role of responsibility. So really awesome tool to take advantage of. If you aren't already, please do so, because it's really going to help you to, stay accountable, keep track of your goals, make sure it's not just a stale document that you look at once and you put in and then, you leave and it gets, stale and dusty. You want to make sure it's a living, breathing document that you're bringing up on a regular basis. And so then we want to talk a little bit about career profiles. So a career profile is essentially your internal organization's LinkedIn page, if you will. And so it's your opportunity to tell your story. I think you might be seeing a theme now. We're talking about the storytellers, right? We are all the storytellers. And this is another opportunity for you to tell your story and allow your narrative to take place in a discoverable way in a form where, you know, folks all around your organization now can see what your story is. And so when we talk about exposure and we talk about, you know, letting people get to know you, that this is a really wonderful way for you to shape your narrative, to tell your story. And so when people approach you, you know, they kind of know a little bit about you based on what you've put in your career profile. And so, you know, it's all about what you want people to know about you. It's your background, it's your skill set, it's your education, it's your certifications, it's the skills you have and the skills you're interested in, it's the jobs you're interested in, it's the areas of the country or the world, frankly, that you might be interested in moving to one day, should the right opportunity present itself. And so all of these things, again, all part of your grand story, are helping, and this is sort of a peek behind the curtain. It really helps your leader, it helps HR, and it also helps the talent team. You know, Colin and myself look at career profiles on a daily basis, and we look at folks all around the organization, and you know, folks you know, in other, you know, our partner, our sister, you know, and brother companies, they have same positions, same folks that are looking at your career profiles. And, you know, we use that information, their data points, and we use that to identify, you know, who is ready for that next promotion, or who should be considered for this leadership development program, or, you know, who would be a great mentor right now, or who needs a mentor and needs to be a mentee. Who can we get involved in a mentorship program? Or, you know, we have these employee resource groups, and, you know, who could really benefit from being a member or even a board member of an ERG. And so we're able to, you know, look at these things and use these data points to really help you and, you know, present opportunities to you that maybe you didn't even know existed. And so it really, you know, helps you to do some of the legwork, if you will, you know, so you don't have to be aware of every single opportunity or everything going on, because your career profile is your story and it's your narrative, and it will tell your story for you so that opportunities can come knocking on your door.
So Kelly, not everybody on this call might be from Comcast internally. So we've got a lot of the external companies, and they might have something similar. But can a lot of these tricks that you're using, can they be used on LinkedIn or other sites like that they might be on?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Great call. LinkedIn is, again, I mean, we call the career profile your internal LinkedIn, right? And so LinkedIn is the basis in which we're using this example of it. It's the platform where, you know, no matter where you're at, no matter what company you're with, you should be in and can be using LinkedIn to tell your story, right? That's where your external story resides. And recruiters and talent, you know, management folks and HR professionals are always, you know, scouring through LinkedIn, because especially if they are, you know, looking to hire, you know, new opportunities, new folks into the organization, LinkedIn is the primary source that they'll go to in order to find individuals. And so I'll just do a quick plug on LinkedIn, because I think it's so important to do. But you want to make sure that your LinkedIn profile picture is updated and professional. And I know a lot of our employee resource groups do hold, you know, headshot events. There's a lot of apps now even where you can take a selfie of yourself and it kind of turns it into a headshot, essentially, through you know, machine learning and, you know, GAI and AI. But you know, so professional picture that's updated. You also want to, you know, essentially kind of convert your resume into your LinkedIn profile. And in fact, you can upload your resume right there to the site, and it'll fill in many of the details for you. To Colin's earlier point on, you know, making sure everything is correct and accurate, you know, going back through and ensuring that all of the automatic fills are right and correct. And so again, to Rich's question, yes, absolutely. LinkedIn, is the way for all of us to be able to share that story. And essentially, whatever your organization has internally should be a mirror image of your LinkedIn profile. Yeah, great question.
And if I may interject, I hope everyone can hear me. Even outside of the platform, right? Just being the mouthpiece, really, being your best advocate, being your best storyteller, whether you're using LinkedIn or you're in a room networked with a bunch of individuals, you're at some kind of engagement, some kind of event. Again, you want to bring to whatever meeting you're in, whether it's electronic or in person, you want to bring that special part of you, right? You want to bring specifically things you want others to know about you, the story you want to be told. If you get to tell it yourself, great, right? But to the degree that you influence others and other people tell your story on your behalf, that's when you really know that you've gotten it, right? So it's a muscle, right? It's a muscle that you develop over time. But you want to get comfortable and be okay talking about what you bring to the table. I think that's the best takeaway.
Yeah, thank you, Colin. Appreciate that. And so we will continue on here. One of the things that is so very easy to do is, when you're thinking about your career journey and creating your plan that outlines your goals, it can be really easy to sit in front of your computer or, pen and paper and just start writing, right? Start filling out the plan. And really too often we do jump to that step, and that's, if we look at this slide, technically that's step number 3. Okay. There are 2 really important steps that take place before we can go about filling out this plan and, really delving into the goals and the actions and, keeping track and progress on the accomplishments towards those goals throughout the year. So really we want to, kind of reel it back, and we want to reflect on step 1 and 2. And that is, again, we talked about it from the beginning all throughout this presentation so far, and it's a reflection. It's reflecting on your aspirations. It's thinking about your future. And, we all move so fast. I said it at the beginning in the chat, we are all so busy doing really, really important, critical, impactful things for our organizations. And so how often do we get an opportunity to just pause and think about our roles, our, where we're at currently, organization-wise, where we want to go, what it is that we truly want to do. And so important to, to be able to carve out that time and spend that time and invest back in yourself. We asked you to put up a couple of your, the words that describe you as a top talent, right, in the market, because you all are. And so, we are investing in you. You need to make sure that you're investing back in yourself and caring for yourself. And so then once you've done, those first and second steps, you're really, taking the time to build out your plan. And we talked a little bit about that. And then 4th is really, talking to your manager, your mentor, and your career champions. And so, those individuals are fantastic allies and champions for you and your career, because not only will they help you to, achieve whatever it is that you're looking to achieve, but they're also going to be able to provide feedback and guidance around those development goals throughout the year. And so if you come to them and you are, let's say an individual contributor, you just started out your career and you say, I want to be a VP of this organization in 2 years. Well, they may applaud you, of course, for being so, inspirational, having so many goals and aspirations, but they might say, there will be a few steps that you would probably like to take before you get to be that VP, right? So, really, just sharing that out, having a lot of people look at that with you, so that again, you're accountable to your goals, of course, but your champions, your managers and mentors are your champions and your allies as well, and they can be your accountability partners to help you get to your goals. And so we're going to jump into an activity. We're going to kind of make things, mix things up a little bit, right? We're actually going to allow you, because again, you have all very, very busy days, and we know that you barely have time to eat lunch sometimes, I'm sure. So, maybe it's, something that we create a little space for you to do here and now. And so on this next slide, you're going to see some prompts or questions that you can take to do some of these reflection and then thinking about the experiences and the type of work that you'd like to pair with your aspirations. And so, I know examples can be really helpful when it comes to thinking about, what problems do you want to solve? It's a really big, lofty question, but that's the type of question that's really going to get your wheels in motion in terms of the jobs that you may want to go into. Because if you just sit and think about, well, what job do I want to do next? There are so many roles out there that you just won't be able to drill it down unless you are literally following a very strict and precise vertical in your particular function or organization that 1 leads to 2 leads to 3 and 4 and 5. And if that's your situation, fantastic. But there are still goals and achievements that you're going to want to layer in there, right, to all of your career progression. If that's not your case, and I think that's probably not the case for many of us, you want to start with these questions. And so, for example, you can see the examples there on the slide, but for me, what problems do I want to solve? I think maybe Colin will agree. We want to solve problems with people. We want to think about what career growth and development and opportunity look like for people, 5 and 10 years from now, and think about the problems and challenges and the hurdles that we'll have to overcome in the time from now to then. Those are the types of problems that I want to solve. Okay, so now I'm delving into, some sort of, opportunities around, change management, design thinking, sprint, learning and development, right? So now I'm getting a little bit deeper. Then what experiences do you want to build for others? And so, you can think about, how, again, if we're thinking about the people development aspect, it's, I want to provide the best in class career coaching and development experience. And what does that mean? That means that there are live learnings available. That means there's live instruction. That means there are things like this, but perhaps we're all in the same room together, and right, we're having that in-person aspect, and there's interaction and breakout sessions and things of that nature. And then what do you want to realistically have achieved by the end of your career? Sometimes it's easy to consider what the end game is for you, or the last step in your career is easy to think about that versus the very next step in your career. But if you think about that last step, so in the example I gave, it's the VP. If you think about the VP role, now it's what are the steps that lead back from the VP role to where I am today? And so, and that's an exploration that you can do with your manager, peers, mentors, and allies to talk to them and understand a little bit more, talking to a VP, or a senior director, on the pathway to VP, what pathway did they take? What was their journey like? And are any of those steps similar to, the journeys that you could potentially take? And then, thinking about the experiences and the types of work, it's where you are today. So where you're currently at, what are you currently doing that you really love? One, as Rich mentioned in the intro, I come from recruitment. And so an interview question that I always loved to ask was, what are the job duties that you currently have that bring you energy and you could do all day long, forever and ever, and be super happy doing them? And then, adversely, what are the job duties that really drain you? They take the energy away from you versus building you up and lifting you up. And, what are those particular experiences? And so thinking about it that way of, where you are today in the role, in the organization, in the function, the job duties, and thinking about everything that you really do like and how that can transfer and translate into the next role or the next opportunity, or how you can continue to get more of those things you love in your role as you're continuing to grow in your place. And then where it is that you want to go, right? Then you kind of take those attributes and then you get a little bit more specific. So this last prompt is the question that you ask yourself once you've figured out everything else. Now it's, so what are the experiences, whether it be experience, education, environment, or exposure, that you need to take in order to get to where you're going to. So really great framework here. And we're actually going to give you a couple of minutes, if we have a moment here, to think about these questions. And so we're going to take some quiet time. We're going to allow you to do something you probably never have the opportunity to do. And it's, taking the next, let's say, 2-3 minutes, and just pick one of these questions and write down a few things. You can write them down pen to paper or on your computer for yourself. And then let's come back together and we'll put a couple of things in the chat here, and we'll talk about what we've all reflected on. So take the next, let's take the next 5 minutes to do this, have this reflection, and you can answer more than, one or two questions, but take a moment and really reflect and think about these prompts, and then we'll come back together and we'll talk about it. All right. Hopefully that was a nice point to just kind of slow down, take a beat, take a moment to reflect on yourself and your aspirations. And so I would love to, either with hands or in chat, love to hear your thoughts on, this activity. What question did you decide to answer, and what are some of the things that you wrote down? So problems we want to solve, experiences we want to have, and what we want to achieve by our career. So Laura Martinez, thank you. You wrote about the problem that you want to solve for. Okay, so the problems you want to solve for are ensuring that justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion are top of mind constantly, because they are so very important. Very eloquently said. I literally could not have said it better myself, Laura. Thank you so much for that contribution. And I think that, with us giving you all of these tools and resources and, ideas, this is an inclusive and equitable way of us sharing and imparting this onto all of you. This is not just for a certain select few. This is an incredibly inclusive way, and your career journey, is looked at very inclusively. And so I love that. And Travis, you mentioned about the problems that you want to solve aren't actual problems, but how those problems are shared and then addressed by our teams. So absolutely, that's great. I think that, that makes perfect sense to me, and is completely right for you when it comes to, the problems that you want to solve. And again, it's going to really help you to say, well, these aren't challenges currently, but here are, the things that we can address and resolve. And so Kimberly put in experiences to bridge the gap, like people leader skills, interim roles, and gigs. That's great. Kimberly's getting real specific on the experiences that she wants to have. And so, if she wrote people leader skills, then I would expect that when she got down to the last prompt in number 2, what experiences will help you bridge that gap, she might say, am I currently a people leader? If I'm not, how can I become a people leader? Or do I need to take some training or coursework? Do I need to, be exposed to other people leaders? And she might be thinking about the things that are in gap to becoming that people leader. And so, Nam, thank you. You added in, what do you want to have realistically achieved by the end of your career? And Nam wants to have designed and built one of the best internet networks in the world for the next generation. Well, Nam, I'm going to come and work for you. So please look out for my name. That's really, really fantastic and really phenomenal. And that's, one of those really big, lofty goals and career aspirations that are phenomenal. And now it's your, kind of work, if you will, to work back from that and say, so if I want to have designed and built, what roles might I would have had to have in order to put me in a position to be that influential and innovative, as well as technical, right? In order to build an internet network for the world, for the next generation, probably have to have some pretty strong technical chops. And so thinking about that and thinking about perhaps some education you might need to receive or some certifications that might help in that way. And so this is all really fantastic, y'all. Thank you so much for taking that time and really thinking through these prompts. You can continue this conversation, again with your leader, your mentor, allies that are with you in your career journey. And when I say ally specifically, those individuals could be peers, they can be friends, they can be family members, they can be folks outside of your company, certainly, and they support you, and and then a sponsor, and when I say sponsor, maybe it's someone that is in the room that you're not in and speaking on your behalf and bringing you up for opportunities and bringing you up in a very positive light, talking about your achievements, helping to tell your story because you've told it to that sponsor, and doing all of that when you're not in the room. So a sponsor is really working on behalf of you, whereas your mentor, you and them are working together, hand in hand. You have very, honest, critical conversations, and a lot of times they bring you along to the room and you're in the room with them when they're talking about you, and you have the opportunity to contribute to that conversation. So I know I was throwing out a few words there, a few lingos, and I wanted to make sure that y'all knew what I was referring to when I went into that. And so we'll go on here, and I'm going to turn it back to my friend who's going to take us down the road here.
Take us on. Thank you for all that, Kelly. That was a lot of content that you covered, and very, very valuable. So thank you for sharing that. I'm not going to take too much more time. We're about to the place where we're wrapping up, but just kind of quickly in review, right? So we opened up by saying, nobody should be allowed to tell your story on your behalf, right? And we kind of move from that into talking about getting clear about the things that we want, right? And maybe one way to do that is to get clear on what you don't want, right? And so we've talked about those two things, and that this next piece is really focusing on the future, right? Where you're going, right? And one of the things that's really important about knowing where you're going is if you're in an organization that either one, you don't know what the strategic plan of the organization is and how it applies to you, or you know the strategic plan and you don't think it applies to you at all, but then you have to ask yourself a question, right? Are you in the right place, right? And sometimes we have to ask ourselves those difficult questions. If you can't align with what your organization is doing, if you can't get behind anything that they're doing and don't see a way that you can have an active part in changing that, or leveraging what you bring to the table to make that a different experience for yourself, it might be time to ask if you're in the right place. So you have to know where you're going. And once you do that, ideally, we will all be able to align our skill set and our skills and abilities to something that our organization is moving towards. And so for me, seeing the investment in talent, seeing the investment in people, and how people are elevated and showcased and encouraged to be their whole selves, that's something that I can get behind. And that's something that I can always align to the skill set that I believe I bring to the table. And so I would encourage everybody here on the call today to, take that same kind of self-evaluation and to look at what's next and to look at where you want to go and to look at where your organization is going. But take on work, take on new projects, take on things that stretch you out of your comfort zone. Take on things that will get you that kind of exposure, thinking of the 4 E's that Kelly mentioned. Think about taking those things on and building your own brand internally so that you can, help yourself to get where you want to go next. Thanks for that. Thank you for advancing the slide, Kelly. The next piece, and I think we've talked about this probably ad nauseum, right? The power of networking. I don't think I need to say a whole lot about it, right? I think we've covered this. But it's important. Let's not underestimate the power of what networking can do, and what getting to a place where you do have a network of mentors, network of sponsors, as Kelly said, people who can speak in rooms that you might not be in on your behalf. How you do that is you get exposure through, again, taking on these additional assignments. Not saying work yourself to death, but be strategic about the things that you take on and take an inventory about the things that you can do to advance your career. And then next to the last slide is just another visual really that we've created that really looks at this whole process of career development, as we call it. As you see, on the way up is intention and on the way down is reflection. But what I want you to see is that this is a cycle, right? Kelly mentioned that at the beginning. This is not a linear process. Right? Sometimes you go up, sometimes you go back, sometimes you go over, right? Sometimes you go diagonally. But somewhere along the way, there needs to be exploration. You need to have some self-discovery about the things that you actually bring to the table and take some time to figure out what those are and get clear on those. You need to take some time to celebrate yourself and make sure that others understand who you are, why you're here, why you're valuable, and why you're important. So amplifying that message about yourself, proving yourself. And really what that is talking about the ways that you already have proven yourself and bringing that to any conversation that you're having with others about career. Because believe it or not, sometimes other people need to hear your story to give them confidence. It's not always about what you're doing and what you're bringing to the table. Sometimes other people need to hear that, hear you talk about where you've been, and that gives them encouragement. So never devalue or underestimate the power of your voice. And then that last piece really is acquisition. And so, we've all gotten to a place, even on this call here, we've gotten to a place where we've gotten to a goal, we've reached a goal. But we know that it doesn't stop there, right? So once you get to that point that you've acquired either that job or you've acquired that new position, that new title, that new piece of credibility, that new certification, then it all starts over again, right? So then you go right back to exploration again, because as we know, we're never done. We never get to the end until we get there, and none of us are there. So don't cheat yourself of the opportunity to do that self-exploration. and then Kelly is going to bring us home.
Thank you, Colin. Yeah.
I said it in the chat. I'll double tap on it though. You know, we are all, and I'll bring up another lingo I've been using, allies. We're allies for each other. We're allies, you know, in our own careers, but for each other's careers. And to Colin's point, sometimes it does, you know, need, you know, someone else to speak on their experiences or, you know, maybe the challenges even that they've had in their career journey for others to say, hey, I've experienced that too, and to join together and to, you know, be part of, you know, the solution, if you will, to continuing on in your career journey. And so here are a few other ways that you can, you know, really just practice some of these tactics, and hopefully they will help you to, you know, stay accountable and stay on your career journey until you get to that end goal of, you know, creating the best network of internet in the world for generations to come. And so, you know, some of the best practices here are own it, right? No one should be more invested in owning your career than you do, and telling your story. And so we get to take an active role in shaping our story and career path. And it's not up to anyone else but ourselves. And so the more time and the more effort you invest now, the more you'll get out of it in the long run. You want to make sure that you're touching on and, you know, kind of keeping tabs on your career growth plans, on your career profiles, on your LinkedIn, right? Just like your LinkedIn, your resume. It's important to keep everything really active, relevant, updated. And, you know, so if you are kind of looking for, well, what is often, right? What's realistic? If you update these things at least on a quarterly basis, that is a really nice rule of thumb to make sure that you're looking back on the quarter, looking back on 3 months, thinking about the accomplishments that you've had, being able to write out those accomplishments as they relate to your goals, and then reflecting that back to your LinkedIn page so that when Colin and I or our partners and peers across the industry are out there looking for top talent, we're going to find you because you've listed all of that great stuff in your LinkedIn, and that's all discoverable information. And being proactive, whether you're actively looking for what's next again, or if you're great where you are, you want to stay where you're planted, but you want to continue to be challenged and you want to continue to learn. You know, it's never, ever, you know, too early to prepare for the future. And so now's the time to start clarifying those interests, building your support network, deepening your skills so that you will be ready for whatever it is, you know, that is next for you. And you'll be ready when that opportunity knocks on the door. And then finally, and I think most importantly, stay accountable. You don't have to do this alone. You know, you are not in a silo creating, you know, this journey by yourself and for yourself. You schedule time with your leader to talk about your career and developmental needs. Find a peer buddy or friend, you know, in your organization. It could be within your own group. It could be a cross-functional group, especially if you are interested in moving to a cross-function. You know, maybe you do want to strategically select individuals that are outside of your group so that they know, you know, exactly what your story is and where your journey is going, and they can speak on behalf of you as a sponsor to others, you know, about you. And so, you know, they can help you hold accountable. Again, going back to your mentors, making sure that you're sharing your career goals and aspirations with them. And by doing all of this, you'll really be in the driver's seat. You will be in control and you will be able to own your career journey. So with that, I think Colin and I want to extend a really big thank you to all of you who are participating on the call today. We really appreciate the interaction and your comments in chat. I think we all had a really wonderful discussion here today, and we are here for you as resources and allies in your career journey. You're not alone, and we're excited to see where you go.
Yeah, thanks, Kelly and Colin. I definitely appreciate it. You know, we're going to give the audience a minute to ask any questions that they might have. I'm going to kind of put you folks on the spot a little bit. I didn't ask you, but if you folks have any questions, please feel free to put them in. If you do have any questions for them later, you can send them off to me and I'll make sure that they get to them and they get back with you. And if you have any recommendations for future topics for these last Thursday seminars, please reach out to any of the board members. We can all be found on the SCTE website. Kelly and Colin, I'll toss it over to you. Can you tell us just kind of what would you say is the best piece of advice that you've received from someone about owning your own career?
Yeah, that's a really good one. I think about I have a mentor who is in Atlanta and runs HR for Arthur Blank's organizations. And one of the things that he said to me that has always stuck with me, don't be afraid to be who you are. And that has always been something that has allowed me to move forward with confidence and to know my worth and to express that to others.
I feel that sometimes it can be a little scary. Sometimes we don't have confidence. And my piece of advice that was given to me a long time ago as well is it was sort of tied into confidence. And there are statistics out there that do kind of define that in individuals who define themselves as women, female gender, a lot of times women specifically are less apt to apply for a role if they don't feel like they meet basically 100% of the qualifications of the role, whereas our male counterparts will apply if they meet maybe 30 or 40% of the qualifications of the role. And so as someone who identifies as female and woman, I do, I've found myself in the past not necessarily going for the role or not, thinking about myself for the opportunity because I didn't feel like I was qualified enough. And I really have learned, and I do take that piece of advice to heart, every day, essentially, because it really applies to even going into a meeting. Am I going to be good enough to do this presentation? And am I going to be qualified enough to speak to someone on their career journey? And, and I remind myself that, yes, I am enough. I am wonderful. I'm great. I have all of these beautiful skills and experiences that you learn a little bit about in the beginning, that you can learn even more if you hop on a LinkedIn and friend me. So it's really, knowing that you are great and you have the skills and you have the experience, and go for that opportunity, even if you're not 70% qualified for it.
I love that. Something that we talk about, Rich, Kelly, and I are very familiar with this term that I think we probably have both iterated in a few different ways, and that is imposter syndrome, right? The need for us to combat that voice that says that we either shouldn't be where we are, we're not qualified to be where we are, we're not smart enough to be where we are, whatever those voices are that discourage us from going after opportunities or from putting ourselves out there and being vulnerable and being courageous. It's a challenge that I think, if we'll be honest, probably most, if not all of us face. And sometimes that can be a daily battle. But, it's important to reflect back on your career, on the things that you've done and how you've gotten where you are today. That alone is proof that you should be where you are, if not further.
Yeah, absolutely. And I make sure and tell, my new employees and those coming to our department, et cetera, you're here for a reason. It wasn't just a random accident that you made it here. So you're here for a reason, and, make sure you pass it on. So, Colin, Kelly, thank you both so much for coming and talking to us today. Definitely appreciate it. See some great feedback in there. Ron, I love your advice in there of what you do there and what you did for your hobby with a paycheck. But thank you all for coming, and hopefully everybody enjoys a little bit of extra time. As Travis said, you can use this extra time to go through that slide that Kelly was showing earlier. Hopefully everybody remembers those 6 questions, and hopes everybody have a great night. So thank you all so much for coming. Bye-bye.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everyone.
Bye-bye.